This is session 6 for effective pricing. We're going to start looking at your proposals, the templates that are available, how to design your own, and then a few more tips and tricks. Once the templates are set up, it's really easy. We've got the quote, the price. Now we need to put it in writing. Some people refer to this as a service agreement, or contract, or an engagement letter. For today, we're just going to refer to it as a proposal. Throughout previous sessions, I've highlighted spots where fields can be used for the proposal. Today, we're going to be delving into that a bit deeper of how you can use the software to create that beautiful customized proposal that automatically imports key information and key factors that you've already gathered during the quote. You can say goodbye to that. You're not going to need to do that anymore. The software will do it all for you. We're going to be spending most of the time today in the live product, and there's also some handouts that are going to be provided from Mark for today's session. Those will get posted with the recording, usually within a day or so after the recording. While I move over to the live product, I want to ask in chat if you could let me know, are you currently doing proposals or engagement letters with your clients? And if so, are you already using effective pricing, or are you using Microsoft Word or Google Docs? So are you already doing them, I guess, is the main question. And then if so, what are you using for it? And I will switch over to the software. Oh, nobody's doing proposals? Okay, I was just taking you guys a minute to type. Sorry, I was rushing you. So Patty says she's using effective pricing, but set it up a long time ago and it needs to be redone. Yep, I'm kind of in that boat as well. Michael says he's doing proposals using effective pricing for the packages and process, but using financial sense for sending the proposal. Yep.
That was supposed to be packages and prices.
Maya says she has an engagement letter template that she got from Pure Bookkeeping. I'm a Pure Bookkeeping licensee as well, Maya. She's still using that one with her clients. Stephanie has a service agreement, also sends it through Financial Sense, but creates it in Word. Christina, hi, welcome. Using MS. Still not using effective pricing. Oh, MS, Microsoft. Karen was using Ignition, now using Anchor. I have not looked at Anchor before. And welcome as well, Karen. And Julie Beth, also using Ignition right now for contracts, does not have a proposal format. And Sharon is using effective pricing, but enters the information into Anchor. I'm going to need to possibly watch some demos about Anchor. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to be jumping around a little bit today between behind the scenes versus what we show a client. I'm going to be jumping in and out of an existing quote back into the proposal. I'll try and walk you through that as I'm doing it. But I'm also hoping that you've been to some of the previous sessions and know how to manipulate your way around the software a little bit. So the first key thing to know about proposals is that, like our pricing models, you can have several different proposal templates. You could have one for a type of office that you offer. So you might, for example, have a cleanup proposal, a bookkeeping proposal, a payroll proposal, or a taxes proposal. It could be that you have a different type of proposal for a niche that you serve. Perhaps you like to serve startups and you have a specific proposal for startups, or you have a niche, an industry niche, for example, and you have a proposal that talks about that niche. The software lets you design your proposals the best way that works for your business. You're going to find the templates under our gear icon, and you'll see in here there are some templates provided, not as many as models, because we typically don't need as many proposal templates as we do model templates. But you do see that we are provided with some templates here already. Just like with our model templates, you can use it, you can create brand new, you can add tags to it so that if you do get a long list of proposals, then you can shorten it by searching under certain tags. I always recommend starting with a template and then editing it as needed. Editing the proposal software is really customizable. Prior to using effective pricing, it was unlike any editing software I had ever used before. It does take a little bit of getting used to. There are workarounds for it that I'll explain a little bit today as well. But it's definitely different. It's a different view and a different screen than what you would see when you're editing our model. In our last session, we looked at a couple of print screens that were available in a quote. So let me just go back into a quote. I'm going to use my Karma Morky dog and let's view this. So on our fixed price page, we had this print button here. And last session, the only print option we had was default. And that gave us this screen that we could give them as a little one-pager type of handout, or yours might roll over onto another page depending on how much stuff you have in your packages. You'll see today I have a couple of other options in here, and this is what we're going to be doing. The other spot where we had a print option was on the payment plan page. In the last session, it was only the default option we had. This gives us a one-page handout of their payment schedule. Now we're going to look at how to put different templates in here for these two screens. These are the two I recommend doing first. These aren't service agreements, but they can become part of your service agreement. I'll show you what that looks like with one of my service agreements. So if I go back into the proposal template section, I've already made a couple of drafts here. The one for the fixed price page is actually called draft proposal. The one for the payment plan is pretty self-explanatory because it's called payment plan. I'm going to click use template. I'm just going to do a couple of save and continues. We're going to go through how to edit this. It takes a minute to process, but we're going to go through in today's session how to edit these. You can see now at a glance that we have a nice little page of our packages as opposed to that default view we had. And you can customize all this. So we will look at how to do that. Now I've got my three options that I want to use today: payment plan, draft proposal, which I just renamed as fixed price page, draft proposal, and fixed price agreement. Rocket theme is the actual full engagement letter. So now I've I've used my templates. I have my models here that I want to work with. For today, I've made them all live so that I don't need to keep toggling back and forth. But you, of course, may want to keep it in draft view until you're finished working on it. The first one we talked about was this packages one. If I go to my print button, you can see that I have more than just the default option. I have my fixed price agreement, which is the actual full agreement. So I don't want to use that here. I have the payment plan one, which I don't want to use here because I want to use that on the payment plan page. I want to use this one that I've called fixed price page. If I select that as my default, I give it a little minute to generate or so here. I get this beautiful template that says proposal for, and it will automatically input the client's name. It will automatically input the date. In this case, it says this quote is valid for 5 days. That message is customizable. You have these sections with stars and comments, again, customizable. You can change that to whatever you want. But then you have your packages. If you're doing a quote for a client, if you get to this part where you've revealed the price and they want to think about it, they ask you for something that they can take and walk away with while they think about it. This is a nice little handout that you can give them. It shows them everything that's included in your packages. It shows the price. For the rest of today's class, I will use the Jack Block quote. In this case, it is now a 2-page handout, but I have this nice little decorative line at the bottom of each page. So these are all things that when we are editing, we can do. So that's number one that you want to set up before you even get to the point of setting up your actual engagement letter. The second one that you want to set up is the payment plan. I do these because when I do my actual engagement letter, these are actually part of the engagement letter. So that's part of the reason why I do these first. And then also part of the reason I do these first is because if I'm doing the quote and the client wants the handout, then you have to tell it which template you want it to use. So if I go into my actual bookkeeping model, I have to tell it here on this screen what template I want it to use. So you can see this morning I had already gone in and said, yes, I want to use the payment plan template, but I also need to say that I want to use the fixed price page template, and then making sure that I'm clicking save and continue. So now I'm in my behind the scenes view. If I go back into my actual quote for Jack Black, my fixed price page, select my fixed price page preview, give that a minute to generate. So now we have that one. And now if I continue, my payment plan page and choose my payment plan. Let's start a new one. What I did this morning when I was getting this error message, and into my client's quote, I picked the quote I wanted to use and I cloned it. And I said, I want to keep the same quote number and revise, and then just save and continue. Let's see if that has fixed the problem for me again. Yep, that fixed the problem. So it's just taking a minute to generate again. I don't know why that was happening. Yeah, I'm not sure why that was happening, but that's how I fixed it this morning. You can just clone the quote, keep the same quote number. I have this payment plan template, which again inputs the name, inputs the date. Your company logo would obviously be here. You can customize this message that you want. And then you can also customize, this one has a cancellation. You can also customize this message at the bottom. And what that does is it creates another version of the quote with the same quote number. Okay, so you do have the option to create a new one when you're doing it. But I am going to edit this one and I'm just going to complete it. When you're completing a quote, you have the option to create the proposal right from this screen. This is the screen where I end the meeting with the client and then I do the rest. Sometimes I need to jump into something else. If you're doing it right away, you can just click on create proposal right from here. You can also go back and generate your price success metric later if you want. I usually go into my quote screen and do it from there. So let's look at how we would do this. When we are in our proposal templates, I'll go into these first two that we want to work on. The agreement is the one we're going to work on later. The payment plan test is the one I just cloned. You can add tags. You can toggle whether it's live or not in here, just like you can on the main screen by pressing the button. You can name it whatever you like. But now here we are into where you can start to edit things. I didn't have a clue what I was doing at first. We are going to be spending all of today's session in this screen or similar screen, whether it's the agreement or the one pagers that we're doing, it's similar types of screens that we're going to be playing around with and editing and testing and looking at what it looks like. The final part that we want to look at is the actual agreement, which I did already set up. The template we have is rocket theme. So if I go in to edit that one, here is where I can see what the template looks like that Mark gives us. If I just hit save and continue, I want to show you what it looks like. You can see that I have it attached to Karma Morky still. But had I have had all of my complete information in here, my header set up, it would have my company name and address, my contact information. This part about Karma Morky is pulling that directly from the quote from the software. So I don't need to manually change that. The date would automatically populate as well. Then I have a second page. I have a proposal number. And all of this wording is customizable. I'll tell you more about it at the end, but I also wanted to let you know that Emily offers a service where she will do a custom design for you. And you just give her the wording of what you like to have in your engagement letters or your proposals. Give her the images that you want to use, and she will go into your software and set it all up for you. Many years ago, when I first started using effective pricing, I did purchase that service. And this is the test that she prepared for me. It's not the one that I currently use today, but I wanted to show it to you. I don't like my engagement letters to be 17 pages long for the type of services that I use. I tend to keep it around 5 or 6 pages, but it all depends. But I wanted to show you, I talked about those 2 templates that you want to set up first and how I include them in my actual full agreement version. So I wanted to show you what that looks like. You can see here I had used a customer name of test 3, but ordinarily the customer name that you're actually using this for would be automatically input there for you. Some of the other things that automatically get input is the date that the agreement is being written, the date that services are going to start. So this is something you can change in the editing portion of the software. This also pulls automatically from the software the fees they have agreed to for the package plan that they've chosen. Also some behavior rewards that they may have chosen. This part that I've highlighted is actually one of the behavior rewards. If they submit all of their documents by the 5th of each month and refer us to 3 other companies, then this price of $464 per month plus HST includes those behavior rewards. And then I also always put what the regular price would be if they don't do those behavior rewards, because if they're not doing it, I still have it in my agreement that, hey, I'm going to start charging you the regular price because you haven't upheld your end of our agreement. You can see here I've said there's a rate schedule attached, Appendix B. So here's my one pager. I call it Appendix A. This is my packages. This is the one pager that we said, and I mentioned about how I attach it to the actual agreement. I like to do this to avoid scope. Let's say, for example, they had chosen my bronze level package and they want me to do some department analysis reports for them. You know, that's not part of the package that you chose, so I'm going to need to charge an extra fee for that, or we can look at upgrading your package. And this is all in my agreement. Putting this in the agreement as an appendix helps me to avoid scope creep. And my team members also get to see this agreement because they're the ones that are going to recognize if there's scope creep or not. So this way they can also see which package the client chose. Here's my Appendix B. This is my payment plan, my one-pager payment plan page. This outlines for them exactly what their payment amount is, the net, the tax, the gross, and the date that I will be withdrawing the funds from their bank account. Which brings me to my next point, because all of my customers are on PAD agreements, and that is also attached directly to my agreement. When they're signing the agreement and sending it back to me, they need to return this as well with their void check. So that's the example that Emily designed for me. There are templates that you will get. This one is a 16:9 template in a different format. Here's the A4 template. This is the one that mine was built on. US landscape and US portrait template. And then a second template, different colors. So there are templates that are available to be used as well. You can talk to Emily if you wanted to look at any of those services. These are the handouts that you're going to get, the help sheets, if you will, that Mark provides. So the first one is just a few pages about an introduction to proposals. This is all stuff that I'm showing you in the software, but you're going to get these help sheets to refer back to it after today's session is over. It's 34 pages, and this is about editing your proposal templates. And just like the time investment that we have to do to get our models, our pricing models, the way that we want them to be, there's going to be a time investment to get your proposal templates the way you want them to be. But it is really worth it. It looks so professional, just beautiful and stunning, and so many people in our industry are not doing things like this. It really makes you stand out from, if you're competing with somebody down the street from you or something. So it just really gives that great image and that great level of professionalism. So I'll skim through this one quickly. You can see we're going to be looking at this. It's going to talk about elements, sections, whether you want 3 columns or 2 columns, whether you want a horizontal line. Just know that this guide is available, because this is where you tend to run into problems when you're designing your software. So if you're having trouble getting it to do something that you want it to do, go back and check this guide. And then we're going to be talking about keywords today. This is the section that is really important to use, because it's what's going to pull from the quote or from the software into your proposals. For example, if one of your questions is a free text field about how did you hear about us, and you type in they found you on Google, you could have that as a keyword, that then in your proposal you have a sentence that says, I'm so happy you heard about us from, and it'll pull in that keyword Google. Or if they heard about you from your neighbor Mary Jones, it'll say, I'm so happy that you heard about us through Mary Jones. Sometimes I like to ask what their goals are, what they're striving towards. One of their dreams of hiring a bookkeeper is that they want to have more free time to spend with their family and go on that dream vacation to Australia or Jamaica. I can put that in as a keyword that will then populate directly into my proposal, and the client will think, wow, this person remembered that I want to take my family on vacation to Jamaica. So this is where keywords can become really powerful and differentiate you and make you stand out. There are some that are already set up within the software. These are the system ones. There's some that are related to the packages, some to the payment amounts, some related to our company, then things for your clients. This could be their dream vacation, their spouse's name, their anniversary date, whatever you want it to be. So there's different types of keywords that you can use. We're going to look at those. So you have this whole handout about how to use keywords, how they pull into the actual proposal, what they will look like. And then you have this great chart on most of the rest of the pages of the guide that tells you what symbol it is to use in the software for that keyword. For example, for the system keywords list, we have bracket client name bracket, and it tells you this will add the client's name. So you have this great chart of keywords that are already built into the software that you can utilize. Okay, so let me go back to the software because you can look at all of those things on your own time. If you're happy with the template at that time, you can complete it, download it as a PDF, and it's ready to be signed. At that point, you can send it through Financial Sense, Anchor, or Ignition, whatever your format is. You have your proposal created, you can send it to be signed. Effective pricing at this time does not integrate for online digital signatures. It does need to be exported as a PDF and then sent through another method. It's not to say that it won't ever happen. It's just not there right now. So you do need to use some other signature method. So if I want to create a proposal now, I've got my completed quote. I can come in here. I just went into options and then proposals. And if I had more than one proposal for Jack Black, they would appear in the list here. It could be that I have one for taxes, one for bookkeeping, one for payroll, etc. If I don't have one, then I'm going to create this create new one. I'm going to choose what proposal template I want. So I'm going to spend the rest of today's session working with the main proposal template because, like I said, the editing for the other ones is all pretty similar. So I'm going to say my fixed price agreement rocket theme, which is the main one that we're using. Proposal name is a mandatory field. So I'm going to say Jack Black bookkeeping proposal. And then proposal date will automatically put today's date. You can change it if you want. I usually don't need to. And then proposal sub number and ignore quote number. There is information in the help guides about what they're for. I don't typically use them. And then again, our usual tags field where you can assign, if you have a lot of proposals for a certain client, you can assign tags to them if you want. So let's say we are now in a proposal for Jack Black. So it's important to know that I am not changing my entire template right now. I am only changing this proposal for Jack Black. If I wanted to change my entire template, I would need to do that from the proposals method. Let's say for Jack Black, they did not get any behavior rewards because I didn't need to offer them any during the pricing meeting. So I don't want to have that show up on the proposal and then they ask me, hey, what is that about? I can go back into this editor and delete that section. You see there's a little scroll bar here where you can scroll down amongst the different pages that are available. So this is the list of the questions, and you can choose whether you want the list of the questions to be a part of your template or not. I find the template that Mark gives us really has everything in there because it's easier to remove things than it is to add them. So if I go to Appendix 4, Behavior Rewards, let's say I didn't need to offer this client any behavior rewards. I don't want them to see that when I send them this agreement and all of a sudden they're like, what's this section about behavior rewards? We didn't talk about that. Just like how we call it BR on the pricing screen rather than discounts. We don't want to prompt them to ask them about that. I can hit my pencil button over on the right hand side. And then maybe I want to say at the end, thank you for your time, or whatever message you want to add. You'll see we have icons on the left of each section. So these are sections this special arrangements box, and then this behavior rewards box. These are sections. And then you'll see we have these little toggle buttons. We have a delete button, the little abacus symbol button. I'm going to show you how these all work. But for now, I just want to delete this section for behavior rewards. These menu buttons on the left are for the entire section. The menu buttons on the right will take you into the section if you want to change something in there. So if I want to delete this entire behavior rewards section, I would use the menu button on the left. I'll just show you that again, because now I no longer have an appendix 4. So I don't need that. If I use this delete button on the left, it will delete that entire box that says appendix 4. So if I hit save and continue, and again, it just takes a minute to populate. Now, when I scroll through, I'll see that appendix 4 section is gone. You'll see I have a blank page here still though. That's because I didn't use the delete button over on the right hand side to delete that page. I just used the one on the left to delete the sections. So let's click this back to the editor button. And now I want to switch over into working in an actual template as opposed to, I've shown you how you can change a quote for one specific client. If you want to change some specific wording, you want to add a sentence, maybe something doesn't apply to them, you can change it for individual quotes. But let's use the rest of today's session to look at how to change your actual template and get that set up the way that you want it to be. So I'm going to go into my agreement template with the edit button. All right, here we are on the main screen, which we've seen a couple of times now. Let's look at ways that we can edit this. Customize it, add some branding, change the colors, customize the message, change how long it's valid for. I will say that I am not a Canva expert. Emily is, and she's done some wonderful sessions and recordings that are available on Mark's YouTube channel or in the Academy about using Canva for your templates. The software does do a lot, but Canva can make it look prettier. One of the things that Emily has done in Canva is created a cover page with the logo, branding, colors, the company name, and whatever image she wanted in there. And then in her template, she uploaded it as just an image. That way she didn't need to play around with all of this stuff in here. It can be quite finicky when you want to start to use keywords to have them placed in the exact same spot that you want them, because sometimes the alignment will go off a little bit when you're trying to put keywords over top of an image. So although it looks beautiful, it can be a little more time consuming to get it to appear the way that you want. But let's look at how to put images in the software. So I'm over here on my Elements tab. We already looked at the pages, how you can view each page. You can use the buttons to drag them around to different orders. If you hit the edit button, you can rename them. On the example, there was appendix. You can see this one, it actually says appendix 1, 2, and 3. You can delete an entire page if you want to and reorder them. So you can do all of that in here. The main part of your editing is going to come from this elements section. And so this is where we'll spend most of our time for the rest of today's class. Let's say I want the text in the second section to appear beside an image. So here we have an image under it, but let's say I want an image beside it. I'm going to go back to my Elements tab on the menu bar and click and drag the image content type into that section. So if I scroll down, you can see I have a content type box, and then here is image. I'm going to click and drag that over here. It has now input, it's assuming that I want my logo, but it has now put that to the left side of the text that I had in that section just by clicking and dragging it onto my quote. So that's how you would input an image. You're not always going to want the image to be your logo. Most of the time you're going to want it to be something else. When it's an image, we don't have the pencil icon anymore to edit the image. Click on the 3 slider bars, the abacus type symbol. And if you notice when I did that, it opened up a different menu over on the left-hand side called section settings. Here you can upload a different image. So you can select a file, you can click and drag, and you can see that image is no longer the logo. It is now the image that I have chosen that I want to use. So that's how you can change the image. When you don't have the little pencil icon, you click on the 3 slider buttons. It opens up an editing tool for you. You can change the margins, the background color. You can change the column settings. You can change the width of the image, make it wider or bigger. There's some horizontal alignment, some vertical alignment, date formats, which will show you an example. Before I move on to some other image or some editing techniques, I'm just going to take a look for questions. Still not seeing any questions. Okay, so we'll keep going. Another neat thing you can do with images is have it as a background image behind your text. If I'm already in the abacus symbol, I've already got my section settings here. What I would do is give some consideration to the size and dimensions of the image and where you want to place it in your proposal. If you want a cover image, for example, that's going to be quite large, then the picture that you're using has to have larger dimensions. The same applies if it's going to be a smaller image. Be aware when you're picking your images, don't pick a large image that you want for a small section, because it's going to be difficult to see what that image is when you make it smaller. It is also recommended to edit your images, making them larger or smaller, in a photo editing program of your choice before loading them in here. They are easier to edit outside of the software, so get it to look the way you want it to look before you bring it into the software. So here I have the option to upload a background image. You may want to do this on a front cover like we had on our cover here. We have this background image that has text over top of it. If I want to have a background image behind text, I'm going to go to the slider bars, which opens up my menu. This one already has a background image. I'm going to show you what it looks like if I remove that. It has now removed that image entirely. You can see that's one in the template that was uploaded with some keywords in it for you. If I wanted to upload a new background image, I'm going to use the same one that I had before. This is a good demonstration of how you need to play around with the alignment of the words that show up over top. These words that are right in the software, but then these ones surrounded by the parenthesis are our keywords. And you can see where it says client name, it's over top of the white section. It's a little hard to read. And proposal date, also over top of the white section, a little hard to read. My image itself is way too big for this section. It's getting completely cut off. So there's lots of editing that we can do in here, and we have to play around with it. I want to show you some of the other things that we can do in here rather than fiddle around with some of these things. I want to show you all the options. So The other thing that we can do is price tables. So looking at our template that we're using, we have the payment plan table available here for us already. We have this section of price tables at the end, and there's a payment schedule table. If I wanted to use that, like in the example designed for me, I can put this into my quote, and the software will automatically pull the information from the quote we've done. All we need to do is tell our template that we want it to do that, and then we don't need to manually input those numbers. I'm just going to click and drag it. I need to add a section first and then click and drag it into that section. If you saw how I did that, you have sections, you can add 3 columns, 2 columns. There's your horizontal rule. Page break, if the information is quite long and you want to control where the page break is. So I added a section, and then I added my payment plan schedule to that section, and that's how I can then put that directly into my agreement. The other table options that we have is the package that they chose, which I also showed you in my example, an all packages table, and the questions. Although that was part of my example, I don't typically put that in my agreement. I like to keep my agreements shorter, and I don't need to list all the questions and what they said they needed. You could have that as a different template. If somebody said, can I have a printout of all the questions I had? You can prepare a template for that and then do that as a separate PDF for them if you wanted, or you could make it part of your agreement. You'll notice that there are also options to add enhancements. If somebody has behavior rewards, then yes, I will show them. I make that part of my full template that I use for everybody. If I've prepared a quote for somebody and it wasn't necessary to offer them behavior rewards, then I remove them. The enhancements, on the other hand, I leave those in my agreement because I want them to know that it's additional services that are available for them that they might want to add at a later point. So it serves as a little reminder. And the final part that we're going to look at in this section before we move on to the next editing I want to show you is the headers and footers. When I talk about the headers and footers, I'm talking about this section at the top. This one doesn't have a footer, but if it did, it would be down at the bottom. We can edit this in the software. You may want to have a different header on the first page than you do on all the other pages. And there's ways that you can tweak and customize it to do that. You can edit these in the template if you want them. You can remove information, you can add information, so on and so forth. And this would be the header on page 1. Now, this header has only the proposal for and the proposal date. It no longer has all of my company information because I don't necessarily need that on every page. I might want my footer to just briefly have my phone number and my website or something, but I don't need to give them my full address and everything on every page. So you can customize your header and footer per page. What I recommend doing is if you have one like this that you want to have on all of the pages, go ahead and set that one up first. And then when you're in here, you can just copy page and it'll have the same header. And then on the first page, the one that you want to make a little bit different, you can edit just that one, as opposed to starting with one like this and needing to edit all the other ones. So let me just go in here. I'm going to say, save and continue for a minute. Here's how the header looks on page 1. As I scroll through, my header is different on all the other pages. That's that page that I deleted the appendix from, and I didn't delete the whole page. But you can see on all the other pages, my header is going to be the same. except for that first page that I edited. So finally, you have the options to change the font size or color if you like. So if I wanted to go in here, I've uploaded my image. I click on my little abacus symbol. I can go in here to my menu and I can change my header and footer settings down at the bottom. So if I click edit, I can choose whether I want it to show that horizontal line underneath my header or not. I personally like it. There's a free text field. You can choose if you want to have page numbers in your proposals. You can choose if you wanted to show keywords or not. You can change your font. You can change your font size and your color. Lots of customizing you can do with your header and footer. Let's talk about keywords. Throughout the course, I've often referred to keywords and how important and powerful they can be. I showed you the help sheet that you're going to get that has a bunch of keywords that are built into the software already, and what the keyword is that you want to use to input the information automatically. So let's take a look at how those appear in the proposal and how you can use them. They're broken down into sections like the system, the client, the packages, the payment. There's that 17-page help sheet. And then you also have the ability to create custom keywords in the software. And those are the ones related to your client, the quote, or the company. Client keywords will vary from client to client. It could be a goal that they're working towards or their spouse's name. Quote keywords can vary as well. It could be year-end dates or month-end dates. Company keywords could be things like your full business name or the website address. So to create your own custom keywords, you would go to your settings menu and then into Keyword Manager. If you had some already, they would appear in this list. But if you're going in here for the first time, it's going to be blank like it is today, and you would click on Add Keyword. So you would need to name what you want the keyword to be called. For example, we'll call this one first name. And then you need to select what type it is, whether it's a client, quote, or company related. In this case, I want it to be the client's first name, so I'm going to say client and hit save. Now, when I'm preparing the quote for the client, because I've already entered the client's name, anywhere that it has keyword client name, it will automatically pull the client's name from my quote into my proposal. You would change those in your profile section. If you go into my profile, you'll see that there's a keywords section, and because we don't have any yet, there isn't any showing, but you can, any that you've added in the keyword manager. So if I go back into my keyword manager and add another one and I call it company website, and I say this one is company, and now I go back into my profile keywords, I now see that keyword appears here and I can type my company website. Now, anytime that I use that keyword in my proposal, for example, in my footer, it will automatically pull that into all of my proposals. For client keywords, I would go in, you can see those in the clients and quotes section, select view and edit beside the client that you're doing the proposal for. So we were using Jack Black. And here you can see at the top, keywords is another tab. We have one here that I just created that said first name, but if I go into Keyword Manager and I add a keyword and I say, call it client goal, and now if I go back in to view those keywords, I can now see that client goal shows up as a keyword that would automatically pull. So if their dream goal is that dream vacation to Jamaica, I can do it. So I recommend playing around with keywords. They're a really useful tool. I do want to go over one final section, and we've only got a couple minutes left. I recommend using that keyword function a lot rather than manually typing them in with the brackets. The reason being is if you are manually typing in keywords, like you're manually typing in those brackets, I do recommend actually using the software to put it in for you, because there is such a high risk of error if you're manually typing it in yourself. So if I wanted to edit this section, you'll see when I click my pencil icon, it opens up this little key that was previously grayed out, right? And this will give me all of my keywords. There's all kinds of them in here that are in the software for you already. And just clicking on the plus sign will add it for you. And then you can click and drag it and move it around to where you want it to be. You can change the font. You can change if you want it bolded or underlined. You just highlight it, and then you have all the regular editing tools that you would normally have. I welcome you to play around with your proposals. Remember to do the payment plan page and the fixed price page first, and then make those part of your actual full agreement that you do. My preference, I think it looks great. Remember that proposals are client specific. So even though you have a template, when you create an actual proposal, you can tweak it per client, and that does not change your actual proposal. Once a proposal is completed, it cannot be edited. So if a client comes back to you and says, you know what, I've changed my mind, I want to take your gold plan instead of your silver plan, you can't change an existing proposal, but you can easily clone it and then make any changes. You actually saw when I was playing around with that error message that I was getting at the beginning of how to do that. So you can clone it, you can keep the same proposal number if you want, make changes and save the new one. Remember to consider using Canva or whatever software of your choice for background images, and then using keywords over top of it to enhance the customization in your proposals. Use an external software to edit your images before you upload them into the software. This is the address where you can contact Emily and Tasha. They will do custom proposal design for your company. You can contact them and find out what the rate is. And then as well, if anybody is looking for help with effective pricing, whether that be your models or proposals. I know I went through things quickly today. There's lots of stuff we can edit and play around with in there. I'm available if you want some coaching or you want to bounce some ideas about your models or role play your models and stuff like that as well. Okay, so I apologize for going a couple minutes over. I don't see any chat messages in the box. I am going to turn off my camera and my mic, and Gabby's going to play some exit music, but I am going to hang around for a few minutes still if anybody does have a question. All right, thanks everybody.